All right. I am here waiting for Agustin Reyes, who's about to join me now. Hello. Can you hear what I'm saying? Am I muted? I am talking.
Okay, can you hear me, Frater?
I hear you, brother. Yeah.
How's it going, man?
I'm going okay. Yeah, it's well,
Excellent.
the snow actually all melted, so that's a nice little break from that. But the snow wasn't so bad,
Right.
It's as long as you're burning fires and stuff, you stay warm. Losing running
For
water,
sure.
that's an adventure. I feel like Little House in the Big Woods or Little House on the Prairie. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. How are you?
I am well. I feel like like the past year now, I've just been in study mode. So I don't take enough time to think about how I'm doing. So, like whenever I'm asked, it's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm just studying,
Brother, I feel you. Like, honestly,
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, sometimes I want to say, I'm way too busy to,
Right.
like, to worry about how I'm doing. I'm too busy. I don't have time to worry about how I'm doing. I'm busy.
Right. I'll sleep enough when I'm dead.
Yeah. Well, the body forces us to sleep and takes what it needs, and we either give it what it needs or we don't and pay the
Right.
price for it. So do we have free will really around rest? Not so much, right?
Yeah. Man, where do I mean that's a great question. Like, where do we have free will? That one's a rabbit hole.
Well, I just released a piece today on Rudolf Steiner's questioning of free will and how
Okay.
determinism works. So we won't get into that, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
what's
So
your
I'm just minimizing a couple of things here.
yeah.
Sorry, say that again.
Who's the guy who doesn't like free will? Harris? He's in a meditation.
Oh yeah, Sam Harris.
Sam Harris is
Yeah.
in meditation but doesn't like free will. Well, that's cool. That's I'm sure. One way or another,
Right.
he'll figure it out. Maybe he's right.
Well, his did you read Waking Up?
What is that? Is that his book?
That's I don't know if it's his latest book. I know it's one of his more recent ones. I want to say it came out in maybe 17 or 2018. And he goes into great depth about, like you just said, for one, free will, but then the other thing he talks about is how little consciousness one needs to be considered sentient. And it was again, it's been a little while since I've read it, but here's this guy who extols just all of these deep meditation and deep thought ideas, and every day of the week it changes as to whether or not I think that he's on the side of, say, Daniel Dennett or Chalmers. It's like, so are you telling me you're a materialist or are you not? I mean, and granted, we all change our minds, but I'd like to pin him down a little bit more.
Well, yeah, you're gonna love the piece I do on Steiner tomorrow. Then it's got some
Fantastic.
exact subject. Look at that! I'm roping you into my podcast. I was just listening to your old episode with Edward and Joe on Esoteric Nerd again. I tried to listen to it the other day, and I just was almost brought to tears because I miss Joe so much. He was one of my besties.
Yeah.
In the order 20 years ago, and
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, he's such a great dude.
Best of us, man. Brain tumor surgery gone awry. That's the worst, brother. That's horrible. I can't imagine. Yeah. There's so many other people I would have rather died on that table than him. That's it. I know that doesn't sound like a very Rosicrucian thing to say, but.
But alas, here we are. And I mean, again, I'm kind of, I get stuck, as far as what does that mean? Like, you noticed in the forum when I was asking people, what is Golden Dawn initiation for? You know, I wasn't asking that. Like I sometimes will come off as being a troll, like I'm trying to lead people down a route, and I swear when I asked that question, there was no trolling intention. It's just, like, let's have a conversation. But you know, I get trapped in this weird place of, what does it mean to be a Rosicrucian? Like what, and I think you should be trapped there for a little while. You should think about it. But I'm not sure that saying that there are so many other people who should have been on that table, I don't disagree. I don't know that that's contrary.
Yeah, no, it's I don't think, I think anyone who thought you were trolling, first of all, was that says more about them, their pre-understanding and how they're going into it, rather than it does about your question, which was an honest
Sure.
question. That's part of the greater circulation. And when you've been at this for so long, you start asking some of those first cause questions, the essential questions. Actually,
Yeah.
like for example, a question I had for you was like, I was thinking, I was like, if you found the Golden Dawn rituals, or found someone able to teach you them, like, back in the day or whenever, but there was no temple or order to join, or say there was no orders or temples that existed, period, and you couldn't really go through initiation in that formal way, would you still, knowing what you know now and have lived with the rituals, would you still tell that version of you to practice some of the rituals or all of them, or what would you keep outside of any existing?
So
Because that goes back to root causes
I
and questions about the nature of what we're doing in the first place, right? What are the
absolutely.
rituals? What do they do? What would you do even if there was none of the structure or fancy titles or robes?
Right.
Trussing it up. What's the word?
Gilding
it. Gilding it. The word is gilding.
Right.
Because there's a lot of gilding in
So
these orders.
there's before I answer that, I just wanted to tell you I picked up your introduction to Hermetic spiritualism, and I'm probably using the wrong title because I'm not looking right at it.
Yeah, Hermetic.
But
I wrote that the year after I closed Temple.
Yeah.
I wrote that as like an essay. Yeah.
I've enjoyed it thoroughly, and I've got to ask you a couple of questions later on, or whenever, about like you brought in Slavoj Žižek in there, and it was like, oh my goodness, this is the first time I've read something that's both Hermetic and has his name in there. That was outstanding, but that's neither here nor there. Let me get back to your question.
Yeah, Žižek's great.
Yeah. I would like to believe that I would still be doing it. I mean, you can remember the old days of the internet when there were easy boards all over the place.
Yeah.
In those days, I did work with an easy board that called itself the Priory of Zion, and it was a Thelemic order, or you can't even call it an order. It was the guy who was running the board was a Thelemite, and I was like taking lessons from him and doing the practice on my own, without any gauge with which to say, oh, I did that right, unless it was like an email that I would have sent to him. So to answer the fundamental question, I mean, I think absolutely, even without temples or orders, if we look at some of the real adepts in history, a lot of them, weren't gifted, and that's the only way to look at that. Weren't gifted a temple or, a physical mentor, So I'd like to believe that, that, and in fact, I mean, when, and I'm not going to spill the whole speech, but when a Hierophant is brought into the temple, there is a point of speech where during the equinox where they say, this is just a preparation for the inward mysteries, for the supreme mysteries. And, like I remember I used to waffle on the notion of whether self-initiation works or doesn't work, or astral initiation works or doesn't work. And I'm sure if, like whomever's listening to this is going to pin me to the wall on this one, but my mind hasn't changed on this in a long time. And that is that your higher genius will dictate whatever it is you need to have happen, whatever phenomena it needs to use, it'll use it. If it's astral initiation, it'll use that. If it's self-initiation, it'll use that. If it's reading a book 300 times, backward and forward, it'll use that. It doesn't matter how it gets you to the stone or to it, to communication. It's going to do whatever phenomena you need, and that's what so many people lose out on, because they get so dogmatic about, well, it's got to be this way. And if you weren't in a temple by yourself, with an initiating body, then your initiation is crap. No, that's bullshit.
Yeah, that's it's still a debate, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Well, but here's something that no one really debates. No one, I've never heard anyone of merit argue that you never need to go through the physical initiations, right? I've never heard someone say that the astral is sufficient. Not only that, you never need to go through any other. Have you heard anyone say that?
Right. I haven't heard anybody in the physical realm say that. Again, like conversations with my own head, if you like. There have been times I've said that to myself. I think there's something to be said for going through the initiations, no doubt. And especially, if you, again, have the good karma, if you want to use that term, or if you just have the grace of the highest to go through an initiation in a physical temple with a practiced officer body, there's nothing like it. It's something unto itself, and it's what's the word for it? It's definitely unique, but as to whether or not someone needs that, I'm not sure. I don't know that, again, going back to your initial question, I'm not sure that, you need any of it. I don't know for certain, it's hard to say it having gone through physical initiations and having done them. But I'm willing to bet that there's some wiggle room.
Yeah, well, there most certainly probably is. I mean, as much as what we hold true here may be true in the above, oftentimes I think we are mistaken as to how things operate on the other levels. And if you can't find that out through meditation, and ritual work, and spiritual experiences that way, then there's always good old plant medicine here to show you a radically different version of reality than you think is universal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think most people agree. If you got to go through the physical initiations, like how is important. It's just if you don't, it's a different spiritual path, sort of. But going through them astrally, I found for Neophyte Zalewski before I went to them physically, right? I did Neophyte Zalewski astrally, did the grade work, and then physically went through them. And after that, every initiation I had was physical at Tahuti, right? So I was really lucky in that regard. I'm very, and obviously Portal and 5-6 have to be physical. I mean,
right.
So, and I've heard a lot of people debate this, and I don't know. I just thought it was good to get your thoughts. You and I have something very rare in common. Actually, we were both imperators of Golden Dawn temples, and that's not something everyone has in common. How did you find?
That's right. Yeah.
How did you find the current of that mantle, brother? Was it
fun,
yummy, or
so?
It's not something I ever wanted. It's not something I ever wanted.
Right. I can tell you for sure that when it was given to me, I definitely didn't want it. Upon reflection, I would have done a lot of things differently, but I don't know that that's a regret as much as it is just reflection. I think though, like for one thing, when you sent me over that picture or that photo of your lesson plan, the way you laid that out, like that in and of itself was just amazing. Like, I would have loved to have something similar, like that kind of structure. That was outstanding, brother.
I think Temple Tahuti might actually have been the most busy active temple in history.
Yeah.
Like that 1 month calendar I sent you, that wasn't special. That was standard from the beginning of my time when it was a full temple to the end, to when I closed it myself.
Right.
Yeah, we were busy.
Yeah,
and the reason you might have actually noticed there wasn't more, there was only 1 4 = 7 philosophist class on the month. The reason was, if you noticed, the reason was because there was all those other, you saw all those proctor classes and teacher classes. All the 4 7s were in those. So I was teaching, me or one of the other adepts was teaching teacher class. So we were teaching teachers how to teach the material as well as training proctors how to train their students. And so that would have been 4 7s and portals in that. So that's why, you didn't have time for a weekly 4 7 class as well as all that. We were busy as fuck, bro. Super crazy busy. Like, and there was 2 temples open 24/7. You could come in and sign. There was like temple logout forms on the outside the doors of both the temples, the large one and the small one. And they would be full.
Oh, that's amazing.
It'd be full throughout the night with students coming in sometimes at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 6 a.m. to do ritual work. They'd sign out the time. Wow. It was crazy. Yeah. We had like over 100 active members just there. And it was, we even made things busier than we needed to. Cause when Martin became an adept for his brief stint, he started a tradition that I continued, which was we would actually do separate Neophyte initiations for each candidate. Even if it meant we had 2 or 3. So there was nights where we did 2 or 3 Neophyte initiations.
Oh man, that's amazing.
Oh, bro.
That's got to take a toll.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that didn't go on forever. And when my brother became an adept, he actually was too lazy to even memorize the words, and we had to like start making all these exceptions, and that was tough. He was my oldest friend in the world, and he sort of skated through the grades on the grace of people knowing he knew me and cutting him a break on his tests and stuff, and that got him. He got a big hit and went nuts. He's crazy. If you don't believe me, ask Frater.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, 10 years later he joined.
I've seen his work. Yeah.
10 years later he joined Yeshi's order and tried to schism it and take it over from Yeshi.
Oh geez.
So he caused the downfall of Tahuti, and almost the downfall of the Thuban temple as well. This one guy. It's people, man, power hungry people. That's another thing I wanted to talk about with you. Like I want to hear your thoughts on Imperator, but this plays into that power. You were talking about this with Very Honored Frater BT and Joe on Esoteric. You were talking about having black robes, no white robes in the temple, or even not using grade sashes. It sounded like cutting away some of the status and prestige of the gilding and the ego that can get involved, which maybe is a discouragement for egomaniac type power hungry people, but maybe not. I don't know. It's definitely like when for the first 4 years I was in the order, or 5 years, their adepts never wore their white robes in front of you ever. You never saw them. And like the first year and a half I was an adept, no one knew it. They all thought I was still in Portal. They thought I was in Portal for like 3 years. And they didn't know. They didn't tell people that you didn't know.
And it should be that way.
Until you didn't know someone was in the inner order unless you saw them on the throne of the Hierophant or on the dais after that. Yeah, I got to do a 6-month term of every dais role. It was quite phenomenal, actually.
Oh man, that would be amazing. Just oracally speaking, Yeah,
I did Demonstrator and Imperator a few times, but man, that Imperator current. that Imperator current really kicked your ass, especially if, like, I was 22, 23.
Yeah.
It was rough. Yeah. How did you find it? What did you feel like the current attracted any, like, and what sort of examples of crap did the current maybe force you to deal with from yourself or others?
So I can tell you for sure that one of the things that happened, and we can talk about reasons why, but one of the things that happened after I became Imperator was after a neophyte, well, in fact, even after the elemental initiations, I wouldn't be able to sleep for the following maybe 6 hours on average. So I don't know. Again, we can talk about what that is, what that means, but one of the things that did, or it facilitated, was it made me a much more, I'll use the word diligent person in my own life. And maybe diligent's not the right word. Maybe vigilant is a more accurate word. And it never felt like, I got away from the idea of being magically attacked. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist or that, people don't do it, but it felt like that kind of vigilance, if that makes sense. Like I'm always trying to look around the corner. Like that's the kind of way that I felt like I was staying awake. More than that, though, I think that it really gave me an opportunity to cut away my own bullshit with politics. As political as a role as that is, it finally also gave me a chance to stop caring about any of that. I found myself being, I want to say, more free or open with neophytes. Like I felt as though if you ever read any of the pyramid texts, they talk about how the doors are gods themselves, right? And I felt like a doorway, in the sense that I always felt like I was letting. It almost sounds arrogant to say it now, but I was letting someone into the mysteries, and I mean, this carried over into my other work when I would be working in IT with people, in the sense that, if you had an issue or a problem, I would be there to, I had this real maternal instinct to start trying to not solve the problem for you, but help you to solve the problem yourself,
Yeah.
And those were the biggest things. I'm curious, what more specifically did you mean? Like what goes on energetically as being an Imperator, or did you mean,
It's all interesting.
something else?
Yeah, it's all very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you make any changes in the order at Temple to Ptah?
Oh, okay.
Right? Did you make any
Right.
changes to try and manage the membership better?
So, I mean, that seemed like it was always under construction. We definitely were changing. One, the way we were interviewing people. The my mentor and former Imperator. I think I mentioned this on BT's Esoteric Nerd podcast, but there came a point where he's like, look, we're not under the old regime anymore. You don't need to initiate everybody. And
Right.
so that
Yeah,
was one of the things.
that's why we had the largest order in history, is because there was no filtration. They just,
Yeah.
good old Voldemort was taking everyone's money, and
Right.
and that was that.
Yeah.
And it's good that the orders around now have more of a screening process. Up at Tahuti, we implemented some, like eventually we stopped letting schizophrenics in because we weren't trained to handle that.
Yeah.
Of course, we just weren't trained to handle it. It's not that you shouldn't be in the mysteries, but
Sure.
and then we also didn't allow in Thelemites or any OTO people, which in retrospect I've come to believe was a big mistake. But that was a order-wide policy. Yeah, and I'm sure
Right. I remember.
you know all the arguments about that and reasons and stuff.
Yeah. So one of the other things that we did was we did a lot of experimenting as far as the initiations went, which, again, anybody who would listen to this and, like is governing their temple, all I can tell you for sure is to experiment as much as possible. If you look at the cipher documents or manuscripts, as you like, there's a lot of play. There's a lot of things that you can play with. One of the things that I did, and I probably wouldn't have said this before, but I'm at a point where it's like, who's going to tell me otherwise? I mean, it already happened and whatever. But I think I mentioned to you that I was working with Zalewski in his inner order work, his adept classes,
Oh,
and so we started to use
with Martin.
Right, correct, yeah. And we started to use some of his God form work and some of his floor pattern work and things like that. Things that before then, it's like the only gods that we would have in the temple in astral form would be the major Egyptian gods from the Neophyte itself. And Pat doesn't work that way. He uses different pantheons. I don't want to, people can read his book or work with him. I think he still intakes people, but that was a huge thing. We worked with we streamlined some different things. For instance, we
What
in the Zelator. Sorry, go on.
What pantheon does Pat Zalewski work with?
So, if memory serves, at least in the Practicus, I know that the Greek gods are present.
Strange.
But yeah, it is. It's different. And it's not to say that the Egyptian aren't there. Sorry.
Practicus is one of my favorite initiations. I love being.
Oh yeah.
Some of the best speeches, and man, I actually gave like whole lectures on the path of scintillating intelligence and the perpetual intelligence, and I did a whole 2-hour lecture on the stone Minizurin one time.
Oh man, I would have loved to have sat in on that.
Yeah, well,
many a conversation on that one.
We're like two different eras of the same order talking to each other.
Yeah.
Because you
yeah, for sure.
I think you came in what, 2009, 10?
No. I was my Neophyte was in 04. Well, I came into the inner in 09.
Okay, so yeah, so you came into Neophyte the year that I closed Tahuti and that Canada separated from the States. Wow, so you're like right after me. That's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy. We just missed each other. We just missed each other.
For sure. Yeah, so I mean, like you say though, that in each of those I'm mixing up my conversations here. So that's for sure one of the places where he changes things up. He also, and again, I don't want to spoil surprises for people or talk inside baseball, but in the Zelator, he changes positions of God forms, and he does it in a very interesting way, such that, if this one, I guess, is not telling, at least if it's out of context, and that is that he places the Philthought on the floor of the temple itself, which I'd never done that before. I don't know if my predecessors were doing that or not, but if they did, they didn't share it. And so that was, those kinds of things we changed, and that was super interesting to me. Like there was we spent I want to say around 6 months. There was about 4 of us adepts who just spent each Sunday work investigating the difference, say, between the opening of the Watchtower and the SIRP and the SBRP. And then, like we would just take an hour and like we were trying to go back to basics. There's a saying by Ip Man, who was a famous Wing Chun instructor. He taught Bruce Lee. He says, a good teacher adds things to an already existing system, such in a way that it flows seamlessly. But a great teacher knows what to take away. And so we were working on that apophatic style, like what isn't necessary? What have we put in here that's superfluous,
Yeah.
And we probably could have spent a lot more time doing that, but those were some of the things,
Well, actually, to his credit, good old Voldemort made a few little tweaks here and there about removing, exactly that superfluous hierarchy invocations during Sephirotic work and stuff. And it was interesting.
Okay.
It made sense, right? If you're not bringing the energy down the four worlds, do you need the choir of the choir? Do you need the choir? Maybe you don't. Maybe all you need is the Atzilutic name of the Sephira. Maybe that's all you need. And I know people do stuff like that similarly in Enochian working as well. It's interesting.
Right.
I never heard about the Filfo on the floor of the temple either. And I didn't realize that Pat Zalewski changed so much stuff. Like that's not, and I think that those are his changes, right? That's not stuff he learned from Frater R.C or anything like that.
Well, according to him, a lot of it isn't his changes. I think when we were working together, I want to say he told me it was close to 90-10, where he was getting 90% of it was given to him by Jack, and 10% is, what he was guided to do either by spirit or by the feel of energy itself. There's no way, I'm not sure, I don't want to say that he was lying to me, but I don't know how I would be able to test whether that was the case or not,
He definitely has an interesting pathway of study for someone who wants to go through the inner order training. And for those listening,
for sure,
Jack is a reference to Jack Taylor, who's one of the people that passed on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Stella Matutina Frater R.C tradition. No, that's okay. There's a lot of it. We can make a lot of assumed knowledge, but yeah, it's nice to. I'm just proud that I know who he is. I'm just like, I know that guy,
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. No. Apparently, he was initiating people even though he was confined to a wheelchair. He was still making initiates.
Right. There's a story that Pat told me, and I don't know if it's published or not, but he was tasked by Jack to perform some astral working, and rather than placing the head of the lion in the south, he did something else, and Jack, not missing a beat, called him out on it. And he's like, and again, I'm probably going to screw up the story, but it was something to the effect of, that's not where Taurus goes, buddy, and you hear things like that, and it's amazing to me, like one of my proctors is Frater A.A., the Imperator, the former Imperator, as I was mentioning to you in our texts or messaging. One time, years ago, I was down in his basement and I was working through.
That was someone I knew.
Sorry?
That was a guy I knew, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Because he and his brother had both gone up to Tahuti, I believe the year before that.
Yeah, no, they were in a lot of my classes, and I was officers in a lot of their initiations. They were nice guys. I always liked those guys. I never got to know them as well as I wanted, because they got into the inner order after 2004. So yeah, I was one of the people pushing for them to be admitted.
Oh, okay. Outstanding. Yeah. Well, I mean, you couldn't ask for a. What's that?
Yeah, I was all for expanding and empowering people to expand the order, and there was two sides to that sort of control and power struggle. But if they hadn't done what they did, then you wouldn't, the GDCSS wouldn't be continuing the tradition. I just had months ago, earlier this year, someone who came to me for spiritual direction, has joined your order and is in Neophyte now. Actually, I was just
Oh, outstanding.
talking with her before this, and yeah, so I've sent so far like over a dozen people who this year to Golden Dawn orders.
That's outstanding. Well, thank you, brother.
Yeah, well, I'm not educating people, so you know, thank God for you guys who
Yeah.
are out there still running temples. It's not a cheap endeavor. And
Right.
it's time consuming and often
No, not by any stretch of the imagination.
if we didn't have all the gildings and robes and badges, how we would feel no appreciation whatsoever. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about the issue of
you know,
continue. Go ahead.
Oh,
I just have a list of things I want to talk about.
Well,
I'm really excited to get to talk, you know, on the level with someone about these things. It's great.
For sure. The only thing I was going to add to that was that I had a similar experience to Pat with when Jeff actually did the same thing in his basement. I was down there working on some one of the Cicero's Enochian scrying deck book, and they were talking about the manipulation of the elemental energies. And you know, unbeknownst to, well, I guess not unbeknownst to him, but as I'm sitting there at the table, I'm trying to draw up fire, and I'm trying to draw up fire, and I'm trying to draw it up, and as I'm looking at my hand, he's like, it looks like you need a little more fire there. And you know, there's no reason for him to have known that. You know, it's not like I had a deck out or anything. And it's one of those cool little psychic experiences where it's like, I have to be really in state to do something like that. It's amazing to see somebody who doesn't, you know?
Yeah. The last time I demoed anything was at the famous Kit Kat Club in Berlin the other year. Someone tested me and
oh wow.
And I got permission, right? Because you know, you ask your higher self permission, and because your will can't be divided by emotion, as we know from the flying rule. And so I had permission to just let the energy flow and demonstrate something that was you know, a little mind-numbingly shocking to those present. You know, I learned from TDL, same as you. So like, you know, TDL, you know, can tell you stuff, you know, pick a number and a color, he'll tell you what they are.
Right.
You know, and these are things actually that I always tell my students, these are things that you develop through the most basic rudimentary exercises like the tarot contemplation ritual. You want to learn mind reading?
Right.
Practice the tarot contemplation ritual.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, two things you said there that are interesting to me. One, you know, Berlin is definitely on the list to go to. You know, there's family over there that I've never met, and I definitely, well, they're not in Berlin, but they are in Germany anyway, and especially that club for sure. But two, you know, if I could write something on my gravestone, it would be go back to basics, you know, like that is the only thing, you know, like right now as we speak, like one of the things that I'm doing in my own work has been, it seems like it's more and more meditation, you know, and it's like meditation on the point that hands down, like, you know, people scoff at it, but it's an amazing thing when it's practiced enough. And I say enough because, you know, like you hear some people say practice rightly. And I think if you practice it long enough, you're going to practice it right, or you're going to get bored and stop.
Yeah, baby. No, you just said one of the most important things for people to hear, right? Like I was thinking about this as I was putting together some instructions the other day. And the reason I do the LBRP correctly is because I've done it in so many different ways, and I can still do it in so many different ways. And that's what's correct. Fluidity. It's like it goes back to your Ip Man and Bruce Lee, right? Like the power of a technique is not knowing how it's done. It's being able to adapt it to any moment, any environment, any situation, so that you actually can execute it and have the results achieved. Right?
Absolutely.
Like, oh, but I punched correctly. Why didn't I hit the guy? Well, he moved.
Yeah, right.
but I did
Right.
right. And it's like, well, yeah, sometimes right is wrong and wrong is right. And that's very Kabbalistic.
Oh man. Yeah, it's also
Conventional knowledge,
Plato's
so.
Republic all day.
Oh yeah, yeah. You Platonists. Everyone's into Plato these days. I'm staunchly into Aristotle. Fuck Platonism and all of that Enneads bullshit. I would
That's
say more.
amazing. I love it.
I'd say more, but
Uh,
I literally already wrote a book on it. My main book that's worth reading is The Ethics of Understanding God. That's my opus. That's the only real book I've ever written.
I have. So I have that book as well, and I intend to start working on that one once I finish the introductory work that you did.
Yeah, it's a little tough.
So
It's written
you know,
technically. It's written in technical philosophical theology language, and there's some semiotics and stuff. But
okay.
I'm going to spend the rest of my life explaining what I
Oh,
wrote.
I love semiotics.
Yeah, I realized after I wrote it that I will spend the rest of my life explaining what I meant, but I didn't put it out for a long time because I wanted to really
Yeah.
challenge the ideas. So for over a decade, I was challenging my own ideas because, again, I produced it young for my master's and get into my PhD.
That's the best way.
Right. And I just wasn't like, it was an exercise of intellect, right? So my intellect was at full force at its best. I'd never even smoked a joint in my life when I wrote that. I'd never really done any drugs or drunk at all. Like, yeah, some lots of Guinness for sure, but that's a side effect of playing Irish music.
Oh yeah.
But I was in hardcore in grad school and in my PhD at the time. So I wrote it as
I suspect you're familiar with the term spiritual autolysis, correct?
No.
Okay. Autolysis just being, like eating yourself, right? Or digesting yourself, I guess. But the idea is that, and there are a couple of people who work towards enlightenment in that fashion. For instance, one name that comes to mind is Jed McKenna. He's offered a book. There's a couple of things like spiritual warfare, spiritually incorrect enlightenment, and enlightenment, the damnedest thing. That's the trilogy. But in any event, his technique towards complete and total illumination is what's called self-autolysis, or spiritual. No, he says self-autolysis. And what you do is you sit down and you make your best attempt at writing something that's true and see how far you can take that and then take it further. And so if you sit on a document like your book for 10 years trying to refine it and constantly refine it, like you and I know through the countless initiations that we've been through and seen, that refinement is the process. Like people get confused and they're looking for the perfect. And the perfect, again, it's something I keep saying to myself, at least. Perfect isn't a noun, it's a verb, and when you get to that step, whatever step you're on right now, you can always refine it further and learn more. Like there's no end to, and I'm sorry if I sound like I'm pontificating or anything like that, but like there's no end to the amount of length that we can go when we search for the higher.
Right. Absolutely. There's no end. There is no end.
Right.
I mean, that's why alchemy describes the process, I think, as a circulation. And you have the lesser circulation of like the outer order elements, and then you have the greater circulation that spans all of time and space for your soul.
Right. Yeah.
But I always think of it as you keep going through it. Like I like thinking of it on the tree of life, where we go down the lightning flash, then we climb up the serpent, and then we repeat it. It's like in the circulation of the body of light. Right? That's
ladders.
That's the whole thing. Like that's a ritual. See, if there was no orders or temples or initiations, I would still practice the middle pillar and the circulation of the body of light for sure.
Yeah.
And probably
agree.
I'm not sure if I would practice like LBRP, BRH, or invoking versions, or if I would do the Supremes. I'm not sure. I would just keep the Watchtower, because the Watchtower is like one of my favorite things.
Right. And I mean, that's one of those things that if you just look at the layout itself, it's, macrocosmic, where the SIRP or SBRP is microcosmic,
Yeah.
And that in and of itself, it's like, man, I'm finally touching something outside of myself,
Yeah.
which sounds wonderful, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's you can look at it as LBRP banishes the microcosm of the microcosm, BRH, the macrocosm of the microcosm, and then the supremes are macro. But you could also look at it as the pentagram rituals banish or invoke or cleanse or call or summon the elemental, and the hexagrams the planetary.
Mhm.
And again, then the hexagram supremes function very differently than the standard one. What are your thoughts?
So, I don't know that I disagree with anything that you just said right there.
Well, I was
The
mostly,
one thing
just to be clear,
that
I'm sharing
oh,
common models, not necessarily what I think or whatever, but these are things people should understand are
okay,
models of understanding these things. There's a lot of different ways to understand these things, and these are some of the most common.
right. So, again, if we look at the fact of, or not even look at the fact, but if we look down on the temple itself, or the temple space, and you notice the formulation of tetragrammaton, I think that tells you a lot too, and this is where I go back to, um, that the pentagrams themselves are definitely microcosmic in that way, because we have, the when we have air in the east versus fire, we're starting inwardly, which is why when I first had that touch or that taste of the macrocosmic with the opening, when you're starting with fire in the east, it sort of pulls at your body, well, not your body, um at your light body. There's a certain thing, like this is it gave, for me, it gave some amount of validity to this idea, of reading, Westcott and Mathers talking about, the circumambulation and the reverse circumambulation, raising light and descending light. And it's like, okay, now I can finally feel what it is you're talking about, you know? And so in that sense too, that shows us something about the neophyte, and how that exorcism is in one sense a macrocosmic exorcism,
Mm-hmm. Yes, very much so. Some people even argue the neophyte initiation abrogates your natal chart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
that's what I was taught. I think I might have even been taught by like Frater R.C, Nineveh Shadracher, one of the early adepts who I had back in like 97, 98. Might have been AMO.
Okay. Oh yeah, I remember AMO.
Yeah, Bjorn.
At least I remember those initials. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yes, I do. Okay. And so, like you just said, with negating the natal chart, one of the funny things that I noticed was, my neophyte was on December 4th of 04, and my 5/6 was, I want to say it was the first week of January of 09. And so what I noticed in my own actual natal chart is my rising is Sagittarius and my sun is Capricorn. And it seemed like, of course it would fit that, my neophyte would be in Sagittarius and my 5/6 would be in Capricorn, Of course, there were a lot of aspects that were definitely different and changed, but it was certainly a fun little exercise. My knowledge of astrology is severely lacking.
Well, of course, a lot of adepts were made in Capricorn because there was around the solstice, of course, because
Yeah.
Because that's when there was a get together anyway. And we all
Right.
that I was there, or Power Weeks in August, right? So yeah, a lot of adepts meeting Capricorn or Leo. I wonder if we could do a study of see the percentage. You know what I'm about to say. You know exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
What percentage of the dickhead adepts were made in Leo? Oh man.
I tell you what though, man, like some of the torture that those guys went through, like during that time, just because it was in Leo, being without talking inside baseball, but being isolated for as long as some of those adepts were isolated, that's beyond initiation. That's just pure mean.
Well, I think I hold the
I'd
record.
probably be an asshole adept. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
How many hours?
I also hold the record for begging. I made $74.
Oh, no kidding.
$74.
Brother, I've heard stories about that. I was never around for the
Me.
begging.
Yeah, that was me, man. It was hardcore. Yeah, but fucking, of course, our Swiss adept has the record for the least amount. He made 75 cents in like 6 hours of begging.
Oh, that's outstanding.
Yeah, no, I made almost $80. Voldemort was so shocked. He was like, "Now you can feed yourself." Frater.
Was that at the Gausti gas station over there?
Yeah, He was like, "Frater, you've missed your calling as in university. You're called to be a bum."
Oh, jeez. I can hear it.
I was like, yeah, I guess, if I can make like $12 US an hour as a bed. Well,
Man.
in Ireland, my first week in Ireland, I was making 20 euros, 30 euros an hour busking. That's probably why I stayed there so long. No, it's not true. But yeah, no, you can do better than begging people. Don't beg. It's not good. Is it a humbling experience if you're forced to do it all night once in your life? You betcha. This is something I don't think it's actually ever been talked about before publicly.
I don't think so. I like I said, I've heard the stories, but by the time I'd heard those stories, most everybody who'd gone through that, excluding say, some of the older ones like BT or TDL, like you yourself, you weren't there at that time, and so let me see.
I wasn't there. Where?
Well, no, what I mean to say is like when I was hearing these stories, I didn't get to hear about anybody who had actually gone through it. Like most people had to go through something ridiculous, but it wasn't always the begging.
I thought the begging was good. It made sense, and I was in tears. I was in tears a lot of it because like they could see I wasn't dressed homeless. Like I had a fucking brand, I had TDL's brand spanking new like $1 million cell phone in my pocket that I tried to obscure, but one guy came out and started praying with me and all that. One guy came out, man. And
that's amazing.
One guy came out after getting his stuff, his food or whatever at the shop, came out and he walks up to me, puts $5 bill in my hand. He said, this is not easy. This hurts me, but I think you need it more.
Oh, wow.
And I he left and I just started crying. That's off. One guy wouldn't give me money, but wanted to buy me food. And I was like, oh, I can't take that. Right. So, and what was really, so he bought me food and then I was still standing there by the door. So I had to pretend to go off and eat it. And I, of course, was preparing for an initiation. So I wasn't allowed to eat anything. I couldn't eat anything.
Right.
They were like,
right.
You can't eat. You have to fast the day before your initiation. And I didn't realize there was a very practical reason for that.
Yeah.
So I had to go off and pretend to eat.
Yeah.
Come back because there's truckers hanging around the truck stop, and I came back when he had gone, and
for sure
and just kept at it till I guess like 4 in the morning or whatever, 3, 4 in the morning from like 6 at night.
Oh my goodness!
And it was very intense, and like you can't do that sort of thing in a ceremonial context without drawing parallels to the Christian story. I mean, that's such a part of Christianity, is
Right.
begging for your food. And here's the ironic thing, brother. You're gonna love this. Because I was only 20 years old,
Mhm.
I had never experienced drinking,
Mhm.
drugs, or any of that stuff. So it never even crossed my mind what it seemed like to
Mhm.
other people. Now, as an adult, I'm like, oh, they thought I was some pussy who
Okay.
needed money for drugs. Of course, that's what everyone thought. You see someone who's
Right.
not all raggedy and
Yeah.
who's dressed well. Like, I dressed really well back then because I was 20.
Yeah.
And clearly I must have been some drug
Mhm.
addict that got like thrown out by my girlfriend, but like I didn't know that didn't even ever cross my mind once. That never occurred to me. That reality was unknown to me.
Oh, that's amazing.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
So I was just like Jesus, and I was like,
You
this
know,
sucks. This is
that's
hard.
that's
And I'm
that's
taking money from people who need it, and what kind of asshole am I? And then I realized I was having
right.
to alchemize the selfishness of the world in that action over and over again. I was having to
Mm.
absorb the selfishness that
Right.
does exist in the world of people begging when rather than who don't need, like it was weird. It was really, there was some crazy energy going through me that I had
Yeah.
to confront. And I then I was lucky enough to have 3 days in the dark to think about what I had just gone through. It was
Right.
very, very
Right.
Jesus. It was very Jesus, brother.
I've heard stories. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not gonna
Right.
go,
Yeah,
we're not
for
gonna go
sure. Yeah,
there.
there's no doubt about that.
I believe that the purpose of the Golden Dawn system of initiation from neophyte to adept to it, and really neophyte to hierophant, because the completion of the journey of the neophyte is when you sit on the throne of the hierophant and initiate a neophyte. That's the completion of the journey, really. That's why you make a
Right.
red robe for yourself. The white robe's not the end; it's the red robe that's the
Right.
end. When you make that red robe, not the white one, that's the purpose of the journey.
Right.
Everyone really should get the chance to go through it if they want to. Now, is it hard as fuck? Yeah, of course. And it has
Mhm.
to be. It has to be. Does it have to
Yeah,
be as hard
absolutely.
as it was for me? God, no. I would never want my mom or sister going through what I went through. But they were fucking with me extra hard because
Right,
I was
for
20
sure.
years old, right? I'd started at 15. 15, I was neophyte. So of course they put me through more than they put other people through. Because what were the chances of me doing this the rest of my
Yeah,
life?
yeah, no doubt.
What were the chances of you and I having this conversation literally 20 years later? Minus 1 month because I was
Yeah,
initiated
that's
on the same.
astronomical is
Like,
yeah.
yeah, what's the chances you and I would still be talking about this stuff, still doing this stuff, and it would still be the most fundamental core of my life 20 years later, as from 20 to that. What are the chances? The chances are nothing. There's no chance that
Yeah,
someone from 15 to 40 is going to do this work
right.
and keep it in their life. But here we are.
Yeah.
They held me for review for many months before neophyte, like for an inordinate amount of time. And the first year I wasn't allowed contact with other members other than the teachers and Frater R.C, Mimo,
Mm.
for obviously good
Oh
reason.
wow, were they trying to do like an AA kind of thing?
No, they were protecting a 15-year-old from some of the nut jobs that that
Oh,
slip by
okay,
your
yeah,
guard.
that makes a lot more sense.
There's always a few weirdos that sneak into every human group or society, and you don't want one of them fucking with
Yeah,
a child.
yeah,
Yeah, one of the things
right,
is
for
that
sure,
at
for sure. That
15, I was underage in Canada, even for like sexual consent. But at 16, you're of
okay,
age. In Canada, at 16, you're of
right.
age for sexual consent. Now, a few years before that, the age of consent in Canada was actually 14, believe it or not. But the conservative government changed that, and
Huh.
probably a good thing they did, eh?
Yeah,
Yeah, people are.
absolutely.
We're tough on our
Um,
conservatives here, but we still let them be in power for 10 years. We have no term limits in Canada. Do you know that we have no term limits for our government in Canada for like the prime minister?
I was not aware of that.
Oh yeah, our last prime minister was in power
You
for
know, it's funny. Again, was in office how long?
10 years. We had the conservatives running the country for 10 years.
Oh wow,
Can you imagine if Trump was allowed to stay in forever in
wow.
Canada? He'd be allowed to be.
Uh, n-
Well, you know,
Well,
Obama might have
there
stayed
are
in
people
power
who
in
are
Canada.
trying to make that the case.
But who? Here's the question: why would you want to be in power in Canada? Come on.
Yeah.
Let's jump off of politics because we were talking about much more.
I mean, to follow in the steps of Trudeau for sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
if only he had his father's brain. But no, we got our problems up here as well. Let's not. The politic thing is the elephant in the room. But I have said how often do two Golden Dawn imperators get to talk to each other? So let's talk about what we
right.
So if you had to pick out rituals, like less than an hour of daily rituals that you were to do, even though there was never any others, which rituals would you do? Say half an hour. Because that limits you. That means you can't throw in things like a good long middle pillar and the watchtower. You can't do all that in half an hour unless you're rushing it, right? Because you obviously you wouldn't throw away.
Are we including meditation?
Yeah, you would, because that's crucial, right? Because you wouldn't throw away the relaxation meditation, fourfold breathing, and then the rising up into beyond the three veils. You wouldn't throw that away because that's crucial to the Kabbalistic cross. People don't say that enough.
Absolutely. Oh my God, yes. I 100% agree with that. So to answer that, and again, I'm going to use another quote here, and I'm almost certain it's Abraham Lincoln. If I have to cut down a tree and I only have 10 hours, I'm going to spend 9 hours sharpening the axe. And in the same way, if I only have a half hour to do ritual work, then 20 minutes of it is going to be spent in relaxation and the meditation on the point. And then 10 minutes is going to be spent either A, doing the middle pillar, or B, doing the LBRP. Well, you know what? No, that's a lie now. It would probably be the SIRP now. And I say that because my thoughts, the model I prefer. What's that?
I was joking. I said, maybe you've been talking to Ramses.
Oh my goodness!
I think there's a very, very solid argument for a depth switch from the LBRP and BRH to the Supreme. I think there's a solid argument for that.
Yeah. Well,
but the reality.
I can see why one would choose either.
We always did all of it. We kept doing all of it because people like me and Martin would look at each other and be like, "What are we gonna do?" We'd be like, we're going to go do 5-6 hours of ritual work.
Right.
We weren't looking to save time.
Yeah. Right.
We'd be like, oh, it's
so one of the other guys, one of the demonstrator who was in term while I was the imperator, that was one of the things that he would always ask, because people always wanted to rush through things. And he's like, I'm not going to go through this ritual. We're not going to do, and mind you, we were doing group versions of the invocation of the Bornless. And so he would tell you straight off the bat, if you think we're going to spend 45 minutes doing this, then you can do it by yourself, and I'll come back when we have more time. And I totally back that up,
Okay, wait, maybe I didn't understand what you just said. You were saying that was not enough time or too much time?
No, that was not enough time.
That makes more sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. If you wanted to go through the ritual, you and I both know you can do the Bornless in far less than 45 minutes. But if you actually want to perform it and you actually, want to have some fruits off the tree, 45 minutes a ritual does not make.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I've started, here, you might like this. Do you still teach students? Do you still work with people?
Right now I'm on sabbatical because of the teaching that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Or sorry, not the teaching, but the training I'm doing. Yeah. But yeah, I still do teach.
But yeah, so you're still technically in the GDCSS.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. No, I wasn't sure because, you know, it's definitely been a few years and who knows. I didn't know how active the order was until the directee of mine
Yeah.
joined it, which I thought was amazing and good. I was really glad they didn't join Griffin by accident, you know. As one of my students accidentally confused Cicero's with Griffin and joined Griffin by accident. Yeah, that was bad.
Oh, geez.
But it gave me access to
Yeah.
Griffin's mainframe for a while.
I was going to ask you about that, and I know you know, we're going to be talking about other things, but you'd mentioned when you were talking to IPAL about did and if you don't want to talk about this now, that's fine. But I'd love to hear about more about this. Did Griffin break into your home? Did
Yeah.
I misunderstand a story?
Yeah, no, that happened. Tons of witnesses. We were in the middle of a Neophyte initiation, so there's a lot of witnesses, including the Phylax, who had
Oh my goodness.
he assaulted the Phylax, and she had to force him out of the door at the point of the claymore she was holding. Like,
Oh my goodness.
yeah,
That's ridiculous.
But Frater R.C told me that the version of the story he heard was that Griffin came in and we sort of moved aside like the Red Sea parted, and he went into the temple, into the throne. This is a massive temple. It was very tall, so you couldn't really see the ceiling. He came in, stood on the throne of the Hierophant. Apparently, I just stepped aside. Everyone just stepped aside and bowed, and he stood on the throne of the Hierophant, and cursed us with a curse, and then we fell shortly thereafter, and all he was wearing the entire time, he said, was a cock ring. Now,
holy shit, I don't think I ever knew how much of a megalomaniac he was.
So I did add a little detail to that story. I'm not going to say what detail I added on to Gargamel's gargle. Can we call him Gargle Jizz? Yeah, Gargajil's version of what we told Frater R.C. But that was very funny to me. So as a result, you know, I did tell the story. I told a caricature of the story on Esoteric Nerd when I did that, to relive those events and the schism between America and Canada in the order was a hard thing. When I did the Esoteric Nerd, I got pretty heavily stoned to handle the anxiety of talking about what happened. But I wish I had talked about it sooner, because some of the players involved wouldn't have been able to go on and ruin some other people's lives and stuff like that. So, you know. But yeah, no, he broke in during an initiation. So what more sign do you need? And I was called, you saw me called out on some Facebook forums and stuff about me referencing that, and people saying, how dare you say these things? It's like, I'm not making this up. Like, that's one of the reasons I was asked by, I was gone. I went dark, right? I was hidden from the occult world for a very long time, because it ruined my mother and sister's lives to a very large extent. These people doing these power games and shenanigans. Right. And there's a human cost to this when you're dealing with powerful forces and also some very sick people. And just give me a sec.
Sure.
So I realized, these things do need to be talked about. And I was asked to sort of make it known, because it's not me just slandering Griffin because he likes to dress as a Nazi in Thule Society clothing, which we all know from the 90s because we saw the pictures on Thule Society websites. I was really not going to talk about this, but you asked, so we're going to do it quickly. We're going to get through it. We're going to get through it and move on to some good stuff that no one about. You and me have covered some amazing things that have never been talked about, I think, this clearly, and that's really good. But
for sure.
It's still like, you know, me and my family never recovered from this, and we still haven't to this day. It's not something we will recover from as a family ever. And by which I mean not any individual event per se, but all of the events in totality, the fallout. You know, my sister was engaged to ICL, right? Like, you know, this was a, you know, I mean, Voldemort's my fucking godfather, right? This is my family, and right, this is hard to talk about sometimes. But Griffin did break in during a Neophyte initiation. So he's now running a Church of the Golden Dawn, right? But this is a guy I have
Oh
direct
my God.
experience. I was there. He did these crimes. If it hadn't been Canada, he might have been shot or
Yeah.
stabbed, right? So the fact that this guy is going out
Right.
there and using some trademark of the Golden Dawn name and his other influence to rape money off people is something that's bad. And whether you question his behavior currently or not, do we know he's done these horrible crimes and committed, like, who, how should we think of someone who kicks in a door of a mosque or a church or a synagogue or a Wiccan frickin' circle, right? And then like disrupts the ceremony that is a neophyte initiation. This is some other people's first time experiencing something ceremonial and beautiful and historical, and that happens.
Yeah.
This is not a good human being. This is a sick human being. Right, like of a different a category apart from the rest of us who just have warts and flaws and sins, and we all fuck up here and there. But this is not a fuck up. This was someone saying, I'm going to take my time, energy, and exert my will to do as much damage to as many people's lives in this vicinity as possible. That's very different than, you know, just,
well,
that's
and if he didn't say that to himself, that's even worse, because, you know, that's ignorance of who you are then.
It's on par with like, you know, ejaculating into a group cup and then serving it to your membership. There's a reason that Voldemort and Gargamel are Voldemort and Gargamel, and let's have the record be clear. We were there, we can testify to this.
Yeah, they are reflections.
These people do exist. People will use good things. Just, you know, the Catholic Church has a huge pedophile problem. These human organizations, no matter from Greenpeace to governments to corporations to, there's a huge power struggle going on in the pagan world in California in the Church of All Worlds in Anaphin. Massive power struggle. I know a lot of the details. And we're talking about, like, you know, similar stuff that I've experienced in the Golden Dawn world, forging signatures on board of directors and like even down where I was just the last 14 months at ISIS Oasis, they got some bad people in there that are, you know, doing very illegal things. And this is something I've seen in all spheres of life, including the Anglican Church that I was trained as a priest in, and everywhere I've gone. That's one of the reasons I don't mind. I think one of the reasons that sort of pushed me back into a bit more public spheres in the Golden Dawn world is because I realized I'd went through enough other spheres of life to realize that this is a human problem. It's not specific to spirituality or the mysteries, and you shouldn't give up on the mysteries or spirituality or magic because there's humans involved. Yeah. And we're not even going to talk about
you know, it took me a long time to.
We're not even going to talk about the crazy shit I saw in the music world, because that's already that you don't need to tell people that there's crazy shit in the music world.
For
Do you know the quote? Do you know the have you heard the quote?
Yeah.
Have you heard the famous quote? The music business is a shallow money trench, a cruel long plastic hallway where pimps and thieves roam free and good men die by the dozens. It also has a negative side.
I swear I've heard that before, but I can't recall it.
Yeah, it's a good one. Well, no one said that. It's attributed to Hunter.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Sadly, that's great.
It's so true, right? So, you know, after being in the music world, hardcore, I realized that the other spheres of human, they got nothing on that. The Golden Dawn world or the magical occult world has nothing on the music business, bro. Nothing.
Yeah. I can't even imagine. Like, there was a time, you know, and I know we're diverging from where we want to be, and I'll stop right after this. But, you know, last year, and I haven't done anything with it, but there is a serious urge to find some way to get involved with bringing more child trafficking to light. And, you know, especially because of Epstein, you know, like that was one of the things that was a call to action. But me and the wife, after we did just scratching the surface kind of research, that shit is scary, man. Like as soon as even if you're just a researcher, you already immediately have a target on your back, and I don't want to be a punk about it, like I said, but I do want to be intelligent, and we still intend to make inroads into actually changing things as much as we can, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not going for political office or anything like that, so I will drop that subject, but let's
I'd vote for you.
let's talk about other things.
I'd vote for you. I would vote for you before I'd vote for Kanye. Isn't that praise? I would vote for you over Kanye.
Absolutely. I listened to only about an hour of the Rogan interview that he did. He is an interesting guy, to say the least. Well, both of them are, but
I couldn't really decide. I still can't really decide if he's a genius or just has low IQ.
Right. Yes, that's the interesting part. Like, I want to figure it out, and that's what keeps me guessing. And I don't know if that's the genius. It was the same thing in my mind when W was in office. I couldn't tell if he was a moron or a robot, like, because he would say something the wrong way, and it's like, somebody, people flub that up all the time. And then he would say another thing, and it's not just that he said something wrong, because if I don't know how much you know about American politics, and the less you know the better, but Dan Quayle was an idiot when it came to talking too, but he wasn't a robot. There have been things that George W. Bush has said where it's like, what the hell were you thinking? Like, you weren't thinking. Like, this is just programming, and I wonder the same thing about Kanye. It's like, are you a genius or am I a moron?
Yeah, I don't know as much about politics as most people, I think, and partly that's due to, like, it's illegal for clergy to talk about politics in Canada. It used to be in the States, but
Oh, okay.
Trump actually is the one who repealed that law in the States, allowing ministers and clergy to talk about politics publicly. In Canada, it's still illegal. It's not allowed. And as a result, being in seminary from age 20, right? I was in seminary from age 20, and as a result, you just don't pay as much attention to it, because I was, at St. Augustin's Anglican Church every Sunday, a part of the Eucharist and the Mass, and sometimes sometimes I was the one giving the homily, and so I was talking to people who were of all spectrums, right? And I was talking to rich people and homeless people in the same audience. Now, I did do an amazing series of sermons on the evils and sinfulness of golf courses, which you should definitely hear sometime. You have a spare hour and a half. Yeah. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. People thought it was funny though, so I got away with it, because if you make them laugh at the same time,
that's outstanding,
right? Hey, I was well trained, bro.
You can say almost anything.
There's something to going through Golden Dawn education and then adepthood and Hierophant and all these officer roles while doing seminary from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day for 6-7 years. That's a double whammy of education on how to present spiritual ideas or ethical quandaries in a way that is received by a wide range of people. Because, anyone can walk through the doors of the temple to become a neophyte, right? We don't ask their politics, do we? Like, we don't ask actually any questions on that sort of ethical or moral basis.
Right.
We observe them. There's definitely a morality to magical work, right?
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up, because that's another thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and it's that question of, think about in the neophyte itself, and I've thought about this ad nauseum, where we're taught about how no one will go through this work who has not the natural virtues to be their throne, right?
That
and
right there
yet,
is moral philosophy.
right,
That's moral
right.
philosophy.
But then, there are black magicians who can efficaciously work magic. And so it makes one wonder exactly what that phrasing means, in the Neophyte, I mean.
Oh, I'll tell you what it means. Is certain, most true.
Okay, yeah, I'm open.
Without doubt, that which is above is like that which is below. No,
Yes.
I can't tell you what that
Oh,
means.
yeah.
I think it's really important that I can't tell you what that means. That has the virtues to be their throne, because that I think really speaks to
Right.
the individual's confrontation with their own higher genius, right?
Absolutely.
Like that
Okay.
is where the
I
path
like
is
it.
mystical, and that's where theurgy, I think, comes in, because you do have
Yeah.
to change and refine yourself through the alchemical fires of the lesser circulation of the outer order grades, the lesser mysteries, that purify those base elements in ourselves, right? That's the
Right.
whole work. Sure, there's a debate about whether or not orders should judge people's alchemical development versus just having them pass the test. Like Frater R.C would be like, if you got the intellectual knowledge and pass the test, you get to go in the next grade. This is not an order that judges people's souls. It's an order that teaches them material and then gives them the next ceremony, right? And then you have orders like Homsey was. We were very much an order that would gauge people's spiritual development through the grades. We would recommend, even if someone could pass a test, we would sometimes say, I think you might want to stay in this grade another 3 months. We would make those discernments. And that's not in and of itself a bad thing. Is it against the tradition? Maybe. But again, the tradition changes, or unless otherwise it becomes dogmatic. And Zalewski is very much into the alchemical developments of the candidate, and he actually looks for specific clairvoyant observations you have to make. And if you don't make the correct clairvoyant observation, Zalewski will have you redo your research and the paper it's based on. Right. I mean, you know this because you studied with him.
The fact of the the simple fact of the matter is, I don't know Yeshi personally, but I'd ask him if he'd read the 5, like, not even gone through it, but did you read the 5-6? And we don't even need to talk about the whatever you might call the point of initiation. Let's just talk about the first half hour, and don't get me wrong, people's ethics are subjective, and that's good, but at the same time, like, I used to think, especially like that quote in the Neophyte about the natural virtues being their throne, I used to think, like, does this mean that I have to lead a moral and ethical life to practice magic? And that's not what it means, in the sense of, if you don't lead a moral and ethical life, you cannot practice magic. What it means is to where I'm at, and what I'm thinking about it right now, what it means is you're not looking at what morals and ethics are for you, and you need to figure, like you said, you need to have an honest conversation with your genius, and like, before you realize that it's your genius, with yourself, saying, why is it that I should lead a moral life? It's not anything to do with there being some kind of value on morality. It's leading the most efficacious life. I have been I lose the words here, because like, this is something that I'm really passionate about right now, and that is that, like, morals absolutely matter, and they don't matter at all. And the fact of the matter for me is that it matters because, take for instance, if you ever go to a Vipassana retreat, and you're asked to remain silent, one of the things that you learn is there's no value in silence inherently of itself. The value is you don't break the moral precept of lying. And why is lying a bad thing then? And lying is a bad thing because, one, you're losing integrity for yourself, you know, because if you can't tell the truth to somebody else, you can certainly lie to yourself more easily, you know. But the other thing is that, you know, it just, if I can't communicate with you openly, then, you know, there are certain things that won't be revealed to you, or vice versa. If I can't be open and honest with you about how I feel about a certain thing, then there are certain things that are just going to remain hidden, you know.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing like when neophytes ask about, well, why do I have to keep this secret? You know, like everybody knows that this is published material. Why can't I talk to my friends about the magic I'm doing? And, you know, it's like, well, meditate on it. Why can't you talk about that? You know, there's a million and two reasons I could give you, but they're going to be meaningless. I could tell you that if you talk about it, you're just fluffing up your ego, and that does nothing for anyone. I could tell you that talking about it will break the hermetic seal of, you know, the strength your magic has, but that's going to be meaningless until you have that conversation with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you put that well. There's something transformative that happens when we have moments that define us ethically, right? And there's consequences. And we're departing from morality here, because the two, really, morals and ethics, are very different. And again, I did write a book on that for those listening. You can check it out.
Yeah, for sure.
But mainly, well, actually, what that book is, and I can't say this to academics, it's a theological and philosophical argument for essentially initiation as an ethical basis for our lives. And I can't say that in the book, of course, though I did slip in the word hermetic like twice in a little section. But you can't talk about that stuff in academic. But I used good philosophy and theology, and it was an exercise of logic. The book is an exercise of logic, so that's why it holds true to this day for me, even though I'm a very different person than I am when I wrote it, because logic doesn't change, right? And I did it right then, so it holds true now. And actually, the book is timely now. The book is actually, when I wrote it, the issues I was addressing in it wouldn't have read for anyone, except for the academics who looked at it and were like, oh, so you're fucking brilliant. And I was like, yeah. They're like, you shouldn't submit this now. Submit this for your PhD and just breeze through. I'm like, no, I've already started a PhD with Nicholas on Evelyn Underhill and heresy and Hermeticism. I'm going to do that. I want to research actual paperwork, and not just sit there thinking in my head logically about philosophy, theology, and the meaning of existence, right? And they're like, okay, that's cool. Good for you. Because, you know, they knew I was funding and stuff like that. But
yeah,
the essential exercise is transformative when you establish your ethical basis of self, which is done by several ways I talk about in the book. I mean, ultimately culminating in an act of spirit, essentially transfiguring us and defining us by that ethical act. And that act becomes an event, and that event then defines us, and that's what initiation is. And I use the theological liturgical metaphor of epiclesis, which is the liturgical term for when the spirit goes through the priest and transforms the bread and wine into the body and blood. Because what more pure magical moment is there in the high mass, in the sacrifice of the mass? That is the most magical moment. And whether Brian Murarescu and his immortality key are correct that it comes from the Eleusinian mysteries, or whether Chris Bennett is correct, more likely that it goes back to Soma and the Vedic mysteries, and also Egypt and all throughout the ancient Near East and Asia, that's more likely correct. But either way, you have this central ritual that is the magical act of transformation of yourself through this consuming of a beverage, right? And that's the metaphor I use to describe the transformation that occurs initiatically in us when we go through an initiation and take a vow, because that is transforming you, and it has moral consequences, because our vows include some very strict moral guidelines that people sometimes don't realize. Most people don't believe me when I tell them I've never done any black magic. I've never done any even slightly gray magic where I'm doing even good magic for someone without their knowledge or permission. People are always, in this day and age, especially of demonolatry and all this other, I love the cult revolution. I love that people are doing everything and anything and putting out 1 million books on it and doing every podcast. I love that. That's great. Like, go crazy with it. This stuff's been suppressed for way too long. This is human spirituality. This is our fucking heritage, right? This is ecstatic human heritage, and it should be expressed to its full transformative effect on human lives and therefore society. And so in that initiatic moment, we transfigure ourselves through an ethical decision. There's a determination that we make when we take those vows. So we take vows to never practice any form of black or even really gray magic, right? Right. I mean, we all took the same vows here.
Absolutely.
So we also take vows where we don't disparage other people, what's sacred in others' lives. If I know that something is sacred to a person in front of me, I don't shit on it. Just like I don't shit ever on the Holy Spirit, because that, according to the Bible, is the only unforgivable sin, is to take the piss out of the Holy Spirit. I mean, the Bible says a lot of things. Most people don't realize. Did you know that the Bible also says there's no forgiveness for sin after baptism?
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
How do you like them apples? That is why, that passage is why, that's why Emperor Constantine got baptized only on his deathbed. It's not he did. Everyone says he got baptized on his deathbed because he wanted to be like, well, I'm actually a pagan. I instituted Christianity in the known world for political power, but just in case I'm wrong, I'm going to get baptized. No, he got baptized on his deathbed so that he wouldn't accrue a single sin before he died. And that's biblical theology.
Wow.
Yeah. So for all of you Lutherans or evangelical sola scriptura types out there, you're fucked. The grace walk, the idea that you're automatically forgiven for all for baptism, is right out the window if you're a sola scriptura believer, which is most Western Christians these days, right? But if that's why you need the tradition. You need the tradition, which grows and changes, sometimes for the worst, to regulate what is useful to the spiritual lives of the people in our time and place. And for an example, what I mean by sometimes grows for the worse, well, we used to have female priests and apostles, and the apostles and priests used to have wives and families. That got wiped out. That's a shame, because that really is causing a lot of problems, and probably a major cause on the rise of pedophilia in the church. I think we should do some serious magic. Magicians do some serious magic right now to uncover and help unveil some of that shit that's going on, because I really do think the whole pizza thing is real.
Yeah.
Good.
Even if that's not, there's so much evidence for so many cases that are. It's beyond. You know what? I'm gonna get off that soapbox, because, like I said, that's an avenue that's far too deep and far too dark right now.
Yeah, I agree. But we'll take this moment of transition to cut to one of our advertisers. Ready? Okay. Thanks for listening. This has been the Magic Without Fears podcast featuring Agustin. How do you say your name? Agustin?
Agustin? Yeah.
Agustin Reyes. Our special today is supported by Adrenochrome. Go to our website for a 2-for-1 sale now on Adrenochrome. It puts the yummy in your day. Okay, back to the podcast, brother. we bookended that well, I'd say.
Oh yeah, that's outstanding.
What can I say, man? I'm from Vancouver. Fucked up senses of humor. If my fellow Vancouverites, Seth Rogen and Ryan Reynolds, are any good examples of it.
So okay, since we're diverging for just a split second, are you familiar with the show Letterkenny?
Yeah, it's Canadian, right?
It is Canadian.
Yeah.
It is my wife and I. It is our favorite show, bar none. It's mindless TV. I don't mind not minding.
I couldn't get through the first episode, but I also couldn't even get through a single episode of Trailer Park Boys, even though I met them a bunch of times.
Yeah.
I'm more a Schitt's Creek sort of guy.
Okay. Okay. I have not watched that one yet, but that is on the radar.
Oh, it puts the rest to shame. Are you there? Have I lost you?
Yeah, I'm still here. I don't know what happened. Yeah.
Oh, I just said it puts the rest to
My
shame.
network might have been sketchy.
Yeah. So where are we going from here? Because we touched on a couple things that would be good to get into more.
Yeah. Well, do you want to talk more theurgy, or where would you? It's up to you. You let me know.
Well, yeah, if we want to talk about theurgy, we get into that with initiation, right? Because first you get initiated,
Right.
and then you start doing the practices. And when you take those vows, and there's all these things you vow, the vows are moral restrictions to a very large extent, right? Like the fact that
Right.
once you take this path, you can never do these forms of magic. Most people would never do that these days. They would
Right.
never do that. So, and I was talking with some other practitioners just the past couple of days, and some students of mine about, we were talking about magical attack, and I said to someone, I can't recall who, have you ever heard of an advanced adept in the Golden Dawn tradition ever complaining about magical attack?
I know that I used to, but anymore, no, that's not the case.
I wonder, I wonder, and I can do that in a safe place with you because, having worn the mantle we've worn, I don't know what everyone else listening to this is going to think, but given having worn the mantle of the Imperator, and having people call you greatly honored or whatever, whether it's it's earned or thrust upon you or thrust down your throat, as it was in my case at a young age, once that happens, it's not a mark of greatness. None of these things are. I used to tell people all the time that the reason it's good for people to even say that they're very honored, which is the mark of an adept, right, in the system, is the reason that you should know who those people are is because if you, like, what very honored means, it means that if the toilet needs scrubbing, I'm the one you ask. I'm the first one you ask. If something needs
They
to
scrub it. Yep.
Yeah. The adepts are the ones. Someone heard that I spent years living in Temple Tahuti, and they were like, that must have been great. Like, you saved all this money not paying rent. I'm like, oh my God. Especially in Zinc's order, man. You think that was the case? No, brother.
Man.
Not only did I pay rent and pay for all kinds of shit, the reason when my signature was forged by,
you paid for his air flights to come there.
The reason Temple Tahuti's bank account is now in someone else, and board of directors is now in someone else's possession, who forged my signature, and the money in that account was student loan money of mine, is now in that person, Frater Yeshi's old buddies accounts. Like, these things, like, yeah, these people are heinous, man. I was just like, whatever, but like, these people do these things, and no, living in a temple was not a way to save money. It's a costly thing. But the point of that, I'm not trying to bitch. I sound like I'm probably whining right now. I'm not at all. I very much loved living in a temple, but it's a responsibility. Like, that's what being an adept is. It's about being willing to be the one to stay till 3 a.m. and get up at 6 a.m. and keep going. I mean, back in the day, you remember, you did work with TDL at international events in LA, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever
yeah, oh yeah.
Did you spend time in Puyallup?
I did.
So you've been through
it wasn't significant time, like yeah,
that's the trenches, baby. And how many days did you only get 15 minutes sleep at those week-long events that we did?
Oh man,
like 150 people would fly to Temple Tahuti for the annual events for a week, and I would make sure that none of them had to pay for a hotel room unless they wanted to. I remember once I drove from Vancouver to Seattle to pick them up from the airport. I couldn't find them, couldn't reach them, drove back to Vancouver, got a message in Vancouver in the answering machine, found out where they were in the airport, drove back down that same night. and waited and looked for them for 2 hours to find them. So like, that was my 10 p.m. till 4 a.m. And I had to run a healing ceremony at 7 a.m. And that's just how it is. That's what these titles mean. People need to know that these titles and these mantles, these are levels of responsibility and commitment that you make. And that's a moral obligation you have to everyone around you. And you have to transform yourself and purify yourself with the work that we do, it's God work, it's theurgy. You have to use those skills and rituals to make yourself into someone who can handle it, or the system will spit you out.
So there are two things that come to mind when you say that, and that is that, one, there's, like you just said, there's a recognition that happens when I was given the title of honored and then very honored, as you do in the order. There was a recognition of, it is my honor to be able to serve more. I seek to learn so that I may serve. And I now have the honor to actually serve people who walk through that door. The other thing that goes through your mind, I tell this to students, to friends, to anybody who'll listen to me, if you decide, that you want to be the embodiment of your genius, or if you want to be a god, what's that guy? I forget his name. Whatever the hell, E.A. Coetting, become a living god. What you have to realize is, if you're going to be a living god, you're going to be in service to a lot of people. That's what that means. It doesn't mean that, I get to snap my fingers and lead a life of luxury. It means that you're putting in the hours to serve people, because if your God doesn't serve you, why are you praying to it?
Good point.
And I mean that in the most serving you, it's not your God.
I missed the beginning of what you said, but I can construe it. If your God doesn't serve you, it's not your God. That's an interesting one theologically too, eh? Yeah, like theologically, that's there's a reciprocity. I mean, but and even Jesus, it talks about the service as a reciprocity. What you hold true on earth, I'll hold true in heaven. That's a very as above, as below. My favorite translation of the Bible, actually, and that's partly I'm saying that because I don't like any translations, and I can smugly say that I fucking learned how to read it in the original languages. That was why I went to seminary in the beginning, right? Oh yeah, like I also was in the only seminary class at Vancouver School of Theology that actually had Aramaic, biblical Aramaic, and our teacher arranged a screening of the Passion of the Christ, because it had just come out during that course, where we went and saw it without subtitles and we understood it. It was really impressive how easy a language it is to learn. So I say this not to toot my own horn, but to let people know Hebrew and Aramaic, especially the biblical varieties, are not difficult languages to learn. Go learn them. Fuck learning the Hebrew letters. Learn the language. Seriously, it would be so easy for members to keep learning Hebrew throughout the 5 to 7 years from Neophyte to Hierophant. It's so easy for us we just need to do it, or put people in the local biblical theology Hebrew course at the local seminary or university or whatever. Put them through that while they're going through, I don't know, the subgrades of 5, 6 or whatever it is, or Portal. Portal would be a great time to learn actual Hebrew. But as far as translations goes, the Message Bible, Bono loves it, translated by a professor of mine, Eugene Peterson. And in his version, he does a colloquial translation. I don't know if you've seen the Message Bible, but he translates from the.
I haven't. No.
He translates it took him his whole career. He's retired now. I was lucky to have him as a professor. He wasn't at my seminary, but he was at the next door neighbor one, which was for conservatives. Like their teachers taught us, but our teachers couldn't teach them because they wouldn't sign. They wouldn't sign our teachers wouldn't sign a statement of confession condemning homosexuality. So
okay, that's awesome.
Our teachers were superior mostly to theirs because we were the older college. But so our teachers couldn't teach them, but they could teach us. And so I got to learn from some of these more conservative professors, which is great actually, because the conservative school could afford more expensive professors. And he translates the Lord's Prayer in the New Testament so differently from anything you've ever seen. But what struck me the most, obviously, was instead of saying as it is in heaven, so shall it be on earth, what he says in that, and you see this actually, you've seen this in my book. He says, as above, so below. That's how he translates what Jesus said, as above, so below. So this biblical theologian had knowledge of the Emerald Tablet sufficiently to be aware that when he was translating Jesus' Lord's Prayer, he's like, yeah, there's some Gnostic thought for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is a very, very old idea. And
And I mean, like if you just take that in and of itself, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
Okay, so like that's one of those things that, again, it's like the further up the grades you go, the more contemplation and the more inner work it is, in my opinion, and I believe that that's shared by a lot of people. And I spent a lot of time with that prayer, and clearly not as much as some, but enough to say, the fullness of expression in the Lord's Prayer is like when it's read properly, it's no different in my mind than, say, the Emerald Tablet, or anything like it. There's a certain non-dual state that can be reached through reading that. And I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But you take the idea of just the first two words of Our Father. It's, who is this our we're speaking of? And that in and of itself, like there are times where, and I'm sure you've had them through ritual, where you come out and the inside is literally the outside. Like what you're seeing outside of yourself is what you're seeing inside of yourself. And Our Father is like, it's ineffable. This is why they call these things ineffable and mysteries. But yeah, that notion of, hold on, give me just a second.
No, I love it.
When you say on earth as it is in heaven, like that, like if you watch how that happens in your mind when you're saying it, like, and I'll speak for myself clearly, because people might not have seen it happen this way with mental images, but on earth as it is in heaven unfolds like the rose on the cross itself. That's what's happening. It's that realization of, like I just said a second ago, if your God doesn't serve you, it's not your God. If you are living in a bad situation or in a bad way, then it's because you're not recognizing the will of what's happening. I tend to tell students of mine, and mind you, I don't mean to get on a kick here of, you're doing this wrong or somebody's doing that wrong, but it's that's how it's unfolded for me. And what I can absolutely say with certainty is that, it's like, it also comes back to that notion of, I'll only make a mistake so long as I don't understand what I'm doing. As soon as I understand what's happening, like, again, when we talk about material manifestation, magic, that kind of stuff, things are manifesting only as you understand them to manifest. Like, that's just watch your distillation train in alchemy, like watch the dissolution and the recombination of things. That's another reason for secrecy. This is the kind of secrecy that you can't help but abide. I can't tell somebody a mystery if they're not ready to understand it yet. And there's no way to say whether you're ready or not. You'll either understand, or you'll get to that next step where you do.
That's something Crowley said, right? If to tell someone truth they're not ready to understand is the same thing as to tell them a lie. You just
Right,
quoted
yeah,
morality,
absolutely.
brother. You just quoted you dirty fellow.
Well, I mean, nothing is true, everything is permitted.
You did do a little Thelema in your early days. What do you think about the star ruby being Widdershins? Little sidebar. Quick sidebar.
Like, yeah, right. For me, it's amazing. It's wonderful for the West. There are few things that I think that will dissolve your reality as quickly as doing that. Again, when I was talking to you about experiments that we did, during our Sunday work, there were things that we did against the grain. Nothing quite like a star ruby in a Golden Dawn temple, but certain other things that would make adepts definitely of the old EOGD or the Homsi order blush, and I'm happy to talk about that offline. But
do you know what's funny?
There are certain things like just do. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a little delay there. You can tell it. Hey, I noticed when I say something, it takes a few seconds for it to morph through the ether, because obviously scientifically we know that there's ether in between you and me and all things, right? That ether is a very real phlogistotic substance, right? I mean, even Einstein loved ether. No, I'm fucking around. I'm joking. There's no ether, folks.
Right.
No ether. Things are much more complicated than we ever imagined. Things are way more complicated. Like even when I was doing the Steiner piece earlier, Rudolf Steiner's thing is like most people would tend to say that they are a spirit, not matter. I was like, well, today that would be the opposite. Most people would be like, I'm made of organic matter. Reality's organic matter. There's no spirit, right? But in Steiner's day, in Christianity, in Christendom, like you notice the book you're reading of mine says post-religious world. When I went into seminary, they were very clear from the day one. They're like, look, this is a post-religious world, and probably the best thing to happen to Christianity would for it to become a marginalized religion again. Then it might get back some of its mysticism and spirituality.
That's outstanding.
From day one, they're like, by the way, we've been saying this in seminaries since the 60s. It just takes a while to filter down to public knowledge. So
that's that same ether that you were talking about, right? That's the cause of the pause.
Yeah. So I tangented into my Steiner reference, but now I forgot what I was going to say. So that's life.
You were going to maybe ask me about the experiments and the blushing.
Yeah, I want to hear more about that for sure.
Okay. So I'll do it like this, so I don't feel like I'm calling anybody out. But there was one frater, and this wasn't done in the temple proper, just because, again, nobody felt comfortable with it. Okay, but there was one frater who decided that, I know how this current feels going clockwise, but what I want to do is I want to do a rose cross, and I want to do it going counterclockwise and inverted. And I wasn't going to stop. Again, you're not going to do that in the temple, right? But
you can't do counterclockwise in the temple except under like two exact situations.
Right. So, but if you want to do that out here in the foyer, then I'll go get the holy water ready, and we'll get prepared, but let's put the lab coat on, and I'll tell you, this is, this was done in the way where as soon as we did it, and it's the same thing with the star ruby, like you can feel, and it could be the fight against Western culture, like all of this inundation of the invisible things that are around us. I'm not sure why this happens, but I can tell you unequivocally, if you start drawing inverted crosses, at least to begin with, you might get to a point where you're comfortable with it because you have opened that portion of your serious sensation, but that's another topic for another time. But if you start drawing inverted crosses in a counterclockwise way, you're going to feel really, really strange, really, really quick, and there's good reason. I mean, there's reason for that. So that's one example,
It's very, I mean, it's dark, right? Like,
yeah.
I've never actually talked with, I've worked with a bunch of AA Argentine Astrum adepts, especially in Belfast, in Northern Ireland, and we would go at each other on this stuff, and they never could really. They admitted they didn't understand why they were doing that, and that it was necessarily a good thing. I mean, there's a reason they asked me to start teaching in their OTO Oasis because I was living there with my girlfriend, and there's a reason they started to ask me to start teaching ritual classes to their membership, because they wanted the Golden Dawn training for their OTO members, and they were aware that the training is not there in the OTO, it's only there in the AA, and they felt themselves that they could learn something from me, though the AA adepts didn't sit in any of the classes I gave or ritual work I did, but their OTO members did. Which I found very, like, to me, that you can imagine I went from being an imperator of a Golden Dawn temple and sadly having to turn down well over 100 Thelemites in my 7 years there, right? I had to turn down all these Thelemites, and here I am, in OTO Oasis, being shown respect, honor, and privilege, and asked to teach people that I had been turning down for years due to their religion, which is explicitly against our vow to not be biased against a religion or hold people from initiation because of their religion. But I think the problem that with Golden Dawn faced back then was we didn't really understand, like Lon Milo Duquette has now made very clear, that Thelema is a religion. It's not the OTO is not a magical training college like the Golden Dawn is. Right. And so had we known that, and had we not had Voldemort as the head of our order, we might have actually gotten a huge bolstering of membership. We probably would never have died. We would have gotten too big to fail if we had let Knights and OTO members in to learn the kind of hardcore magic we were practicing. Because to this day, I've never met people more hardcore than Golden Dawn trained magicians. And I was talking with one of Frater Yeshi's X7=4 guys. We're talking about a guy who actually went through the 6-5 and the 7-4 initiations, right? Like only 3 happened under Yeshi, I believe, and that's heavy. I wish our order had done those initiations. We consider ourselves more traditionalist, Alpha et Omega. Everyone's 5-6, and we're all equal, sort of, more or less, other than the formalities of having honorary grades. And then of course there was the true alchemical grade, which is between you, your higher genius, and the chiefs of the order. So we sort of were amorphous and complicated in how we handled that stuff, everything beyond 5=6. Plus we didn't get the 5=6 material in my day subdivided into grades. They just put it all together and said, whack, here's your whole 5=6 thing, do it all over the next 5 to 10 years. It might. I think it was.
So I had to spend.
Wasn't it your Temple Ptah that actually divided the material into the subgrades of 5=6? Because I saw them when I was at Isis Urania in England. At Isis Urania just last year, I got to see them subdivided, and I was like, oh, that's so cool to see them subdivided.
Yeah, I remember, the night after my initiation that myself and the Sor, who was also initiated into the inner, we spent that whole night just printing that giant, massive brick of paper that was all of the grade material, except what Voldemort kept as, carrots for when he wanted to take something out of it and say, oh, well, I'll give you this if you do this for me, as he was rather want to do.
Wait, I have to bleep out the name you just said. Ready? Bleep.
Okay.
Bleep. That's how bleeping works. I am an adept of bleeping. Did I bleep it right? How about this? Bleep, bleep.
I think
you try. You do a bleep. You do a bleep.
Bleep.
Okay, yeah, it's gone. It's gone. No one knows the name you just said. Okay, moving on. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Yeah, so no, and again, that came from that whole idea at the same time in February of 2011. We're saying, look, we can do this differently. We can actually have subgrades now. We can actually write, an actual 6-5 grade initiation. Nobody was thinking about writing an initiation into the abyss or a 7-4, whether or not one would even do the abyss right, because that's a Crowley thing too, but or so I'm told. I don't know.
It's sort of. I think it is a Crowley thing, but I think he did it wrong.
Okay.
Only
That's fair. That's
only
fair.
Crowley could do his own ritual wrong. No, like what I mean by that, let me clarify what I mean to that, to all my beautiful OTO and thelemic and AA brethren out there. I love all you guys. You're the best. Keep up the good.
Likewise.
Good work. I wouldn't call it the great work. We'll call it the good work. OTO is the good work. Golden Dawn is the good work. I'm joking. It's just a joke, people. I'm joking. Okay, but here's the idea. The idea is shit. Am I gonna forget the idea? Fuck. What was the idea? Dude, there's no booze up here.
How Crowley did his own ritual wrong?
But I swear they pump marijuana into the environment in Canada now. They're just putting it in the factory furnaces and pumping weed into the air in Canada. We're all fingerprint. As soon as I got back to Canada on Equinox, September 21st, since then I've been fingerprinted, voice analyzed, video call confirmed, bank account attached to the tax revenue services. They have all that stuff in America you guys are worrying about and concerned about. In Canada, it's just done. They slipped it in. They just slipped right in there while we were all busy taking our COVID money. So I came back to Canada and we're all on record. They know where I am, what I'm spending my money on, who I'm talking. They know everything all the time. And no one complained up here because why? When we need a CAT scan or have a broken bone or get cancer, we don't pay a penny. And therefore, no one cares the fact that the government knows everything about us now. Isn't that a difference in culture? It fascinates me.
Man, well, and like I told you in Messenger, it's one of the reasons why, and I don't mean the voice analysis and the recording, but the simple fact of universal health care. When the wife and I were talking about this, it seems a no-brainer. Like Canada is the next move for us.
The problem is
we might inch our way up there.
Well, you're welcome here anytime.
What's that?
You're welcome anytime. I'll get you in. You just got to divorce your wife, then I'll marry one of you at a time. It'll be good. I can make it happen.
She'll love that.
And then you and I can then open the temple of Harpocrates together.
There it is. I love it.
It'll be a sign language only temple. It's going to be like Menzo Berenson sign language.
Oh man. Well, what the hell was I looking at? There was something I was looking at that was using ASL, and it seemed like it was for the most ridiculous. Damn, never mind. I can't think of it.
I have to show you. You know how the fingers work with the elements and hand magic and all that? I have to show you the new system I developed over the last 15 years since Temple Tahuti. I developed a whole new system. I think you're going to love it. I'm going to show you that. I also want to talk to you about some other stuff like Ritual of Four Servants and some stuff we can't get into on the podcast. I shouldn't have even said that out loud. But what can I say? I'm stoned.
Sure.
I haven't smoked any weed today, but I'm stoned because I'm in Canada. Actually, it could just be the mountain air and the fact that I get up.
Because it's in the air.
Sunrise. I'm up before sunrise every day, and I'm not even doing the Abramelin ritual. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, well, here's a fun fact that this is what I forgot earlier. Remember, I said I went on a tangent, then I forgot. Well, Aquarians always return to their tangents, and you mentioned EOGD, which for most people means Esoteric Order of the Golden Dawn, which is Voldemort's money scam order that has caught a few people that then found me and have moved on to better orders since then, because he still has a presence, so he's still scalping people for money, right? But here's what's funny, bro. You guys keep saying EOGD, but to me, that means something very different. Because when I joined in the 90s, the trademark war was just happening. So I joined the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, but shortly thereafter, it became thereafter, I joined the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. I was seeing the flyers from 93 to 95. And then I was initiated in 96. But then after 97, it changed its name due to the Griffin's trademark war with Chick Cicero and all that jazz. It changed its name to the Eternal Order of the Golden Dawn. So my Zelator manual said Eternal Order of the Golden Dawn.
Okay.
So when I hear EOGD, I always think Eternal Order of the Golden Dawn. Isn't that funny?
Right.
But that's not what people mean. Yeah. And then we became the Hermetic Order of the Morning Star, which I thought was a great name. That was a great name. That was in America too. In Canada, we stayed Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn the whole time.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah, because you wouldn't have had the trademark issue.
Right. And we were, and also, given the size of the order, because of the open admission policies and the correspondence course, which was remarkable to allow people to study the grade and fly for their initiation. Then they go home, they study the grade, fly for their initiation. That's a beautiful process, which even Zalewski's order and like Hogan in Texas, they're doing that. I was working with Frater R.C. in Santa Rosa, and he's with Hogan. And actually Hogan, when he found out he had met me and was near me, said, I was going to fast track you, but actually just work with RC.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
That's it. So apparently my reputation precedes me, but what's actually remarkable.
Yeah, it's very flattering.
I'm joking about that. What's really weird is that that Zalewski order is run by Martin, right? These people were trained by Martin, my old roommate, and me and Martin will never be on speaking terms again due to my sister. And so it was very strange to be like given blessings from an imperator, from a head of an order. Hogan is essentially the head of a Templar order, to work with me. So, the reason I'm talking about that is because that experience directly led me to reaching out to more orders and old adepts that I knew, and adepts who knew adepts I knew. Because you and I have never talked before today, and we didn't message before really. But I always I heard your podcast in 2-3 years ago, and I was like, that sounds like someone I want to talk to. I was actually always curious to know about the decision to keep God forms to the inner order. Is that true? Is my memory correct that you restricted God form practices to the inner order?
So we tried doing that. That didn't work. And it was, if we could have started completely fresh, it might have worked. But there were too many proctors that we still had, even though it wasn't, like the numbers that we had before 2011, but there were too many proctors who were practiced in the old way of teaching. And so what wound up happening was, hey, Frater, I've got this secret teaching I'm going to give you. We don't do it anymore, but here it is, and when that happened, it was like, okay, well, there's no use in not doing it, and we're not going to change the way the material is published. So it stayed in. That one stayed in.
Well, it's an interesting one. Like, I just got a message. Remember I told you about the DirectT friend who joined Griffin's order by accident. Then I helped redirect her to FGDU and Dan and Ramsey's. And she just wrote me the other day. She got into Zelator, which is great because she probably wouldn't have not enjoyed Zelator under Gargamel. Apparently, he was doing a lot of live stream rants on Chinamen and how Chinamen are, and how the Golden Dawn tradition will save the world from the Chinamen.
Oh my goodness!
To quote Ginsburg, them Chinamen, and them Russians and them Chinamen. That's the mentality of this guy we call Gargamel, David Griffin. People need to avoid David Griffin like the fucking plague. But
look, the Chinaman's not the issue here, dude.
Yeah, I know.
Nothing. I was quoting Lebowski there.
Oh, I did a TikTok, a TikTok on Instagram the other day as a joke, but then I addressed it to Xi Jinping and said "Ni shi wa de erzi," which in Chinese means "you're my son," which is how you say in Mandarin or Cantonese. I can't remember. It's that's what you say, "Ni shi wa de erzi." That means "you're my son," and that's how you say in Chinese, "I fucked your mom."
Oh man.
You're my son. You're my son. Isn't that great? For all you people that want to know how to say
That's
something
hilarious.
funny, if you want to know how to say something funny in Chinese, 你是我的儿子. And my pronunciation is not good, but it's not. It works. 我的儿子. 你是.
Yeah.
It's a sure. It's not sure. It's 你是我的儿子. And again, I'm not good, but I
Sure.
I
Okay.
do say it well enough for it to be understood. And I know because I tried that out in the nightclubs of Vancouver where there's lots of Chinese. Well, Chinese is the majority in Vancouver, which is great because we have the best food. But yeah, whites are a visual minority in Vancouver for a decade now. It's a very international, and that's a good thing in my opinion. What's bad is that we let China buy all our property, not let people live in it, artificially inflate our housing markets. So my old $1,000 unit rents for $6,500. $1,000 units in the last 10 years are now renting for $6,500, that's China's impact in Vancouver. So it is dangerous. They do not have our best interests in the West in their hearts. But enough of that. Enough of global macroeconomics and politics.
Brother, let me ask you. I'm sorry. Is there a way that we can continue this next week? I apologize. I didn't plan well enough, and I need to feed my wife.
Yeah, you.
I'm not trying to use her as an excuse. Yeah. But yeah, I love our conversation, and I want to keep going.
Yeah, let's continue it some other time.
Okay.
I'm sorry to end it on this crazy, weird note. I wish we could have ended it on a more theatrical, edifying subject.
I'm not. I'm actually. I like the diversity. It's awesome.
Well, let's do a part 2 for sure. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, outstanding. And you know, like I told you, excluding Monday of next week, if we want to shoot for next week, just let me know if a day works for you, and we can do that. And I'll plan better, you know, such that I'll have either made dinner beforehand or figure something else out.
Can I ask you one last question before we start?
For sure.
So imagine all the meditative practices like meditation 1, focus on the point, relaxation. Imagine that didn't count. Say you had either a full hour or just half an hour for just ritual work, middle pillar, LBRP. What other rituals would you keep had you never had the opportunity to be initiated at all? If you just could do a couple rituals every day, what would those rituals really be? Because this is a question that actually does have a lot of value, I think, to people out there who have no opportunity for order work or who believe that it's better to go it alone and avoid human politicalness in orders altogether. What are those rituals that you think have a human value?
How far am I allowed to go up?
Go all the way if you want. Like for me, honestly, I would always include a rose cross ritual and analysis of a keyword. Like that's the gold nugget for me. Like invisibility plus massive energy invocation. I would never give that up. And I have students who are practicing that even more or less against my advice, even though I say you should wait till you're an adept in 5-6, have the solar initiation, and then invoke that current. But some people say, hey, you can be doing the LVX signs even though you don't have that grade. They say it's different. It doesn't do the same thing that it does for someone who's had the initiation or the 3 days in the box, but it does have an effect that's alchemically formative and beneficial to your body of light and the initiatory experience. So yeah, with open floodgates of any of the rituals you could reference, what would your daily regimen be?
Okay, so
let's say published rituals. Let's not go.
I would start.
You and I have been taught that are secrets, because there are still lots of secret rituals.
Okay.
And we don't need to tell people what those are because fuck them.
Right.
hey, if you think the mysteries have been all published, you're fucking nuts.
Right. I mean, if you're part of an order that it just has public rituals, then you need to leave immediately. Nobody's thinking about their work, and that's unfortunate. That being said, though, the published stuff is still great, and I would start with the LBRP if for no other reason than this is the inroads to the vault itself. LBRP, then I would do a middle pillar. And I have a reason for the order in which I'm doing these things, and we can talk about that next time if you want, or if, whatever the case. But after the middle pillar,
we'll be studying
then we would
your
do
methodology and deconstructing you for years, brother, for years.
But after that, then we would do the BRH.
With analysis.
The BRH has to be. You beat me to it. Yeah, it has to be done with analysis. After that, then we can move into the invisible, and so that's where we would do the rose cross. I would then perform another middle pillar ritual. I'm not sure if it would be threefold or ninefold, but it would be one of those two.
You wouldn't swap out the MP for the BMP?
I don't think I would, no.
Okay, continue.
You know what? Let me think about that. But as it stands right now, I would say no. So after we've done the rose cross and the next middle pillar, then we will do an opening by watchtower. Oh wait, well no, we can still do that there.
Yeah, totally.
And then the SIRP. Yeah.
You would, if you were only keeping, say,
and so it What's up?
I'm just laughing because no, I
missed it. What?
I interjected, and then you so you would do the SIRP and the opening by watchtower if you had only a few rituals that you did every day for the rest of your life. Wow, that's a lot of juice.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of juice.
Yeah.
And what else would you do?
Yeah. So
LBRP, MP.
Then after that, then it's all for me. It becomes all.
Yeah. So LBRP, BRH, analysis, middle pillar, SIRP, opening by watchtower.
No, opposite. Opening by watchtower, then SIRP. I want to go, because at this point I want to go from the outside in. Because the idea is when I'm doing my SIRP, I want to be traveling up Samekh, so that I can start talking to, if I was using this formality to talk to my genius, that's how I would do it. Because after that, post all of those rituals, then it's just conversation.
And next time we'll get into the difference between what you think the genius is, or the higher self, and the holy guardian angel, because that is a big can of worms.
Oh, I can't wait.
Oh, we got to do
that
tomorrow, son. We got to get on this. We got to do part 2. I think we need to schedule 6 hours.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what's the
I'm in.
What's the icing on your cake of this daily ritual regimen? What do you do with all that energy after the opening by watchtower and the SIRP are preparation?
I'm right. I totally forgot this part. I have a modified. What's up?
Don't say that you cap it all off with a comfort ritual.
No, I do not cap it all off with a comfort ritual, but it might be just as anticlimactic for some people, because I have a modified healing rite that I do. I stole from, or not stole from, but I was inspired by a Doctor Strange comic book to take the full moon healing rite and to use it to actually mend the universe. Now we can talk about what that means, because
you got to send me that.
The universe here nor there. It also, okay, all right, can do. Yeah. So, like I'm saying though, you get to a point where you realize the universe doesn't need mending. It's you that needs the mending. It's Walt Disney, in the sense that the magic was in you the whole time, except to say that you still need to feed that energy back to the universe. You know, if I'm going to be of service to anything, I need to be of service to everything. That doesn't necessarily mean roses and smiles and whistles, but you know, it does mean that I need to give energy to it.
Amazing. I love that. And I'm realizing, of course, at the same time,
Yeah, that would be the capstone.
if we were actually, I realized this would be totally different if you and I were able to mention unpublished rituals. It would be so different, wouldn't it? Like, seriously.
Oh yeah,
But the core of
it definitely would be. Yes.
Yeah, it would definitely be different if we could talk about unpublished rituals. And now everyone's gonna be like, oh, what are those? Join an order, do the work, do the training, do the time. It's
Right.
You can't do it solo, but you can do a lot solo, and you can come up with your own rituals solo. So you can do it either way. I'm a fan of the master apprentice model as well as the collegium model. What I wish is that we would all work together and build bridges so that we could, like, how cool would it be if we could have a, not even necessarily every year, but an event where like all the reputable Golden Dawn orders were invited, where practitioners could be even thelemic if they wanted, and we would all do massive ceremonies and rituals together and not sit there poo-pooing each other. That would be so amazing. And that's the world I'd want to live
That would be
in.
amazing. Yeah.
Right. And you know, I think we're pushing towards that. It's one of the reasons I haven't accepted invitations to rejoin any second orders, is so I can stay independent and unbiased, and I can talk to, like, you know, in a given week I'll talk to Frater R.C, you know, and a couple other heads of different orders. I'll talk to Tabby, and we're all talking, and like we actually have some ideas, and those ideas, I think people can talk to me about them because I'm not affiliated. If I was affiliated, though, I'm tempted by the Sodalitas. I'm tempted.
Yeah.
That's neither here nor there. I'm doing my true will, and the Celtic Mysteries will take up the next 5 years of my life. We'll talk about that next time. But yeah, so that's really, really great to know. I think people, if they could realize that, like, an LBRP, a BRH analysis, middle pillar, and then major invocational rituals like the Watchtower and the SIRP, and then a healing ritual, that could really add a lot to anyone's life. Now, you see, if it was me, I would cap it all off with what I call the Osirian Eucharist. And I think you know exactly what I mean when I say the Osirian Eucharist.
Oh. Uh-huh.
Right? Like, that would be a way to end that regiment as well, right? You have a modified Doctor Strange version of
absolutely
ritual, but really the 4 elemental Eucharist done at the end of the Neophyte Initiation, to me, that's the icing on the cake. In fact, the local grocery store that's an hour away from my mountain.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
My mountain cabin here has a grocery store an hour away, but you can only buy a dozen roses. And the fact that I can't buy a single rose, I have to buy 12 roses for $20 to just have 1 rose for my Osirian Eucharist. Brother, that's painful, man. They don't sell roses here. Anyway.
Yeah.
Thanks for talking with me. We'll do a part 2. We got to do it soon because we've
for sure. Thank you.
To get into it. Such a pleasure.
Yeah.
And for everyone who's listening, the Golden Dawn Collegium Spiritual
Likewise, brother.
is a beautiful order, still doing the work. I noticed that you were active mainly because that directee of mine joined you and posted a teaser pic on Instagram where you could barely make out the cover of a Neophyte manual. She didn't break her vows, but you could barely make out the cover of a Neophyte manual. I was like, I recognize that. I think that's grade material. I think you're studying grade material that I helped edit in 2002 to 2003. And she's like, I don't think so. And I'm like, let me inquire. And obviously it was true, right? You know, we'll talk more about that next time. I'll tell you about my 3-day editing sessions of the grade material in the years prior to your joining. Those grade materials were never released. I re-edited as sub-praemonstrator under TDL the entire corpus of the material you guys know and love. And I also instituted a practice to make sure that all the grade materials would be given out in leather-bound manuals to all the students thereafter. All of that stuff fell apart.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
I had the bookbinder all lined up because I'm a bookbinder myself, not like Paul Tronson's level, but I'm not bad. And I had it all negotiated so that for an extra $30 grade fee, you'd have your manual bound in the color of the grade in leather. And it's so sad that never happened, eh?
Yeah, that definitely is. Kills me. I would love to see, like a sketch of that or something,
Well, I don't even have the copies of the edited grade material that I did over those years in Puyallup because they were all on Voldemort's computer. But
Yeah.
it was very sad. I have my grade material with all the
course.
notes that I used. And in my magical diaries from the mid 90s, you can see me thinking, you can see my notes in my diary saying, this material seems problematic. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll rewrite it and be the one to rewrite it. And I was. But it never got released, which breaks my heart to this day, because the material that people are still learning on is poorly written. Some of it does contain original work that I did, which is ironic, right? But I can't get into that now. I got to let you go. For your wife's sake.
All right, brother. We will definitely do this again. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I will. I'll message you sometime tonight, and we'll get that figured out because I want to keep talking.
Do you have any last words of wisdom to sign off with for those who are not in an order practicing or wanting to practice?
The only thing that comes to mind is, like the one thing, again, that I tell students over and over again is continually experiment. If something says don't do it, don't be satisfied with it saying don't do it. Figure out why it says don't do it, even if it means that you have to do it to figure out why. You're, as far as you know right now, you're only going to live once. Test everything, question everything else.
And do lots of DMT. All right, that's been official wisdom from a Golden Dawn Imperator and veteran of Western mystery traditions. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Magic.
Thank you, brother.
Years. And remember, this episode today was brought to you by 2-for-1 Adrenochrome. Just type in Epstein for your sale offer. Yeah,
I love it.
Whatever. Okay, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Good night, bro.
See ya.